I produced this short video to outline the development of my D3 design project for the RIBA Studio Part 1 course. Being based in London and keen to work on a rural design project, I was drawn to my homeland, Northern Ireland, to the eastern shores of Strangford Lough, where the quiet village of Grey Abbey lies, overlooked by the ruins of its 12th century Cistercian abbey. Chatting to older locals, there was much reminiscing of childhoods on the foreshore collecting cockles. I was surprised how fondly these memories were looked upon and the strength of the past connection with the shore. One man explained, "We're all cockled out." This appeared to strike a chord with them, and the phrase that I felt possibly captured the wider local situation of a declining local economy and a deteriorating state of the village high street. This exposed coastal landscape is drastically transformed by the tide. A shallow sea with numerous drumlin islands becomes expansive sands at low tide. The area has a number of designations, including an area of outstanding natural beauty, area of special scientific interest, and a marine protected area. But due to its flatness, it is vulnerable to coastal erosion from rising sea levels. The National Trust has been at the forefront of a long-term coastal adaptation strategy that seeks to mitigate the risks by working with nature. I was intrigued by the closeness of the islands to the mainland, many accessible by foot at low tide, but I was also drawn to their remoteness, with only glimpses of them visible through the coastal road's unruly hedges. I found in my early research there was ruins of a small chapel on a nearby island with a suspected link to the mainland abbey. I began to envision movement on the site again and reinstating a centuries-old connection. The idea of movement was reinforced when I found that the stones of fish traps originally built by the monks in the 12th century were later repurposed for the infrastructure of the 18th century kelp industry on the very same foreshore. A rich historical site context was unfolding in front of me, and my research began to focus on the historic kelp industry that once had a significant commercial importance to the area. A National Trust volunteer kindly lent me a rare historical book that documented industrious activities on the shoreline, namely the gruelling process of burning kelp in crude, circular stone kilns. The resultant soda ash was used for dyeing linen, making soap. Early charcoal sketches attempted to capture ideas on framing views to the landscape, but also sheltering visitors from elements. I think these set the tone and the scale of the spaces at the beginning of the project that I felt were appropriate. On my first low tide walk to the Chapel Island, of about 600 metres from the mainland, the wind was relentless. I welcomed some shelter from the topography once on the island. I knew there was something interesting in how the exposure to the elements and the natural pockets of shelter could begin to define zones throughout the site. All the historic infrastructure was in ruins and overgrown, but by mapping it, it provided an interesting diagram of the past movements and processes, and this helped to inform my site plan and the idea of a journey. I put together some conceptual collages that explored the foreshore, the kelp processing heritage, and the proposed journey and engagement with the site. I felt these successfully began to unlock the site and captured some of my initial thoughts and experiences. Simple cardboard and clay models allowed me to experiment with initial forms and contrasting exposure and enclosure. I was interested in developing a phenomenological approach to the concept. I tried to get as involved as possible with the site materials and the raw seaweed product. I researched emerging areas of sustainable seaweed uses, including traditional Irish baths and cosmetics. My technology report explored the use of seaweed as a building material, which eventually filtered into my final design as an insulation material. I also experimented with the processes that resulted in the seaweed product that could be applied to the skin directly or infused in cosmetics. And this was quite simple. It was collecting, washing, drying, grinding. I looked into vineyards that combined grape growth, winemaking and drinking experience for initial program precedents. These, along with discussions with my tutor, gave me the confidence not to overcomplicate the developing conceptual agenda. I could let the qualities of the site resonate. Through exploration and experimentation, two simultaneous programmes emerged that gently reinvigorated the local economy and, importantly, the cultural connection with the foreshore. The programmes were intertwined with each other, and where they met, I felt it created exciting and intriguing situations and opportunities. Perimeters, pavilions, decoys, a sculptural piece by Mary Miss encouraged exploration. Discussing this precedent with my tutor, I investigated how each sculptural aspect had its own identity and spatial characteristics, yet encouraged a holistic site dialogue. Almanjivet Zinc Mine Museum by Peter Zumfer creates an experiential journey across a heritage site. With atmosphere created through materiality, it evokes a connection with the past. One of the greatest challenges was to propose an architecture that I felt would be in harmony with the site. Exploring the qualities of the existing materials and the processes of erosion on the landscape was key to developing a treatment that I thought was appropriate. Architectural form emerged from the interpretation of kelp kiln structures and the wind-defined landscape. I utilised existing site features such as an obsolete section of seawall to provide access as far out into the tidal foreshore as possible. The idea of casting the proposed island baths and the mainland structure's roof using the site materials as moulds appeared to capture a moment in time in the ever-shifting and changing shoreline. The building manifesting from the site and becoming part of the increasingly threatened coastline raised an important awareness point. Ensemble studio presidents seemed to resonate with the project's aspirations. I began to think of the idea of using coastal erosion to reveal the cast over a period of time. As the design evolved, I tried to bring a sense of materiality and process into my model making, building the stone moulds to cast the circular concrete baths and simulating erosion at its base that eventually left the bath freestanding, or building the formwork to cast the concrete frames which would form the basis of the boardwalk structure. These model casts were photoshopped and began to create a certain depth and atmosphere to the project vision. I explored how the process of casting could involve people and possibly some kind of celebration on the foreshore. Once I had established the site plan, I began to explore the moments throughout the site, again using models superimposed into the landscape. I superimposed Catherine into other images to bring a sense of scale and understanding of the human experience. I also explored the changing tide in certain areas of the site. Some baths would be flooded and then revealed again at low tide. This seemed to heighten the physical relationship between the visitors, the tides and the landscape. I hope this video has been helpful and thank you for watching.